Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, General Stephen Wilson.
Well, have a seat, Martin. Well, how cool is this? Getting to spend a few minutes with Mark Cuban and being able to riff on a multitude of topics that I know of interest to our airmen out there. So, Mark, you just saw the Spark Tank. You get to see kind of what the Chief and the Secretary and I get to do every day, work with 685,000 amazing airmen, like you just saw there. They're pretty spectacular.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I got picked for this job. You may not know this because we're really similar. I mean, it's obvious to everybody here, right? So
it's the hairstyle that gave it away.
That too. I once had hair. He's got hair. I get to fly airplanes. He owns airplanes. Yeah. I get to go to basketball games. He owns a basketball team. I've got 7 Twitter followers. He has 7.7 million Twitter followers. Our taxes are in that same league too, just to let you know. I mean, isn't it obvious? We're twins separated at birth, right?
Stepbrothers.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to throw out an easy softball for you. So you've got to go to AFWorks to see our AFWork team. You just got to meet some of our Spark Tank finalists. What advice would you give them on innovation and how to take it forward?
I mean, learn from what you saw up here. I mean, the brilliance of each and every one of those ideas is that someone saw a problem. And let me add, all of us have had ideas that we thought were going to be the next great thing, right? We get that feeling in our stomach, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then you talk about it with your friends or who you work with, and they say, what a great idea. And then most of us stop. What you saw up here and what made it so compelling is that they didn't stop. There weren't complicated solutions, right? I mean, some of them were advanced technologically or they were super smart, but they were simple in that they just took basic problems and they tried to solve them. There's nothing, that's something each and every one of us can do. And so the best advice that I can give you is do it. You know, when you have that idea, when you have that opportunity, do it, because that's what separates the people that just separates the entrepreneurs or the intrapreneurs from everybody else. They just took that first step. Don't be afraid. Take that first step. What's the worst thing that can happen? You know?
Let me pick on, because when I heard you talk earlier, I heard a couple of streams. I'm going to use an analogy, a baseball analogy. Ty Cobb was really good because he hit singles, he got on base. Babe Ruth was really good because he hit home runs, but he also struck out. So today I kind of heard you say, hey, you didn't go big enough. You kind of just got your foot in the door. Go big. How do you balance that?
I don't think you have to. Like, you know me for things I've accomplished. You don't know all the things I've failed at. I mean, I tried to sell powdered milk. I was like, well, maybe it doesn't taste as good, but it's cheaper. People want milk that's at least palatable that they can drink, you know? And so you go through these iterations where you fail. And no one counts your failures. There's no scorecard, there's no, you know, there's no box score for your failures. So go big, because the worst thing that'll happen is, okay, maybe you can't get quite that far, but you can get almost there. You get that first step. My first company I started was because I got fired. You know, and so it wasn't like I had this big plan. I knew exactly the company I wanted to start it. No, I was sleeping 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment and didn't even have my own room and didn't even have my own, you know, drawers. I had a pile of clothes. And it was just like, what did I have to lose? What do you have to lose? Right? So you can go for what you think is the solution. Go for what you think you can accomplish. And if it doesn't work, you've learned and you try it again.
So when you look at an idea that comes to you, or a person that comes to you, or a company that comes to you, what makes you say, I'm going to invest?
A couple things. One, is it unique in how it solves its problem? So you heard in some of the pitches earlier, I ask the question about talking to vendors, or what would your competition say, right? And so I look for something that is unique and differentiated first. Then I look for an entrepreneur that's honest with himself or herself. Because the thing we all do as entrepreneurs, we lie to ourselves. We say ours is the biggest, the fastest. Anything that has an or est in it is a red flag for me. And then I look for somebody who's living, eating, sleeping, breathing their business. Because if it's not so compelling to you that it's all consuming, why are you doing it? I mean, literally, I used to dream about my companies. Even to this day, if I have something I'm working on, I'll dream about it, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night. That's what I'm thinking about. And so, is it that compelling to you? And then, fourth, have you done the work? Sometimes it's the idea, sometimes it's how much effort you put into it, but really, you're competing. And so, have you done the work to make sure that you know what your competitors are doing and how you'll be able to succeed? And if the entrepreneur has done those things, then chances are I'm going to be very interested.
Yeah. You mentioned competing and competitors. Let's talk about that for a second, because I'm now going to switch to some things our competitors are doing. I'll use China and Russia, specifically AI.
Yep.
So talk to me, is
scary. China's got a huge advantage over us. Russia has some advantages in that there's, they have a lot of programmers, they have a lot of, tech, cybersecurity hackers, and that helps them some. But China, there's no rules. They set the rules. It's a communist country, so their facial recognition captures everybody. And that allows them to have far more data than we could ever have as a country. And data is kind of like the new oil, in that in order for artificial intelligence to succeed, you need data. And the better the data, the better labeled the data, the better opportunity you have for your artificial intelligence to expand into new areas. And if you look to see where research is coming from for artificial intelligence, it went from there being, 10 papers a month that I could keep up with. I might not have understood them all, but at least I could track them all, to hundreds of papers a month, and a lot of them are coming from China. And so they're doing things that we're not. They've made it a national focus that, at least from what I've been able to see, that we haven't. And the reality is, if you look at all the ideas that were presented here, at some level they were about math, right? You had the trailer. That's a math problem. How do you fit the most in the least amount of space? What's excess? You had the weather problem. That's all AI. How do you take variables and how do you apply machine learning and try to figure out the optimal solution in the least amount of time? And that also takes us to processing speeds, right? In order to do AI, it's not just about capturing data, which is important. It's not just about algorithms and research into AI. It's how fast can you process them? And if you look at the processor companies in this world, in the United States, there's Intel. That's it. That makes advanced processors. In Korea, there's Samsung. And in Taiwan, there's Taiwan Semiconductor, who's probably the most advanced. Well, there's one country that thinks Taiwan is part of their country. And if the shit hits the fan, they're paddling over there, and something, who knows what happens, and then all of a sudden we're at a military disadvantage because we're not as far advanced. And we talk about tracking information. We don't track who's making processors. We don't track the advancements in the processors. So if there's somebody in China that has a fab that's building, more advanced processors, that's just as important as keeping track of warheads, because that's how the battles will be fought. And so AI is not just important, it's everything. And the final piece is communication. So we're talking about 5G now, and there's a lot of discussion with Huawei and whose components do we buy and what technology do we use. So if you capture data, then you have to transport the data, and that's where 5G comes in, because you reduce the latency to next to nothing in certain cases. So capture, transport, well, if we don't get 5G distributed and we don't dominate that space, where are we? Particularly if China does. And then you can go to robotics. and that's more consumerism and it's more manufacturing, but it still has a place. I mentioned robotic dexterity. You want to talk about Terminators, the only two things that keep Arnold from coming back like he said he would, are robotic dexterity and batteries. Because the minute we have batteries that can last 8 hours and there's robotic dexterity, it's not going to be people fighting the wars. And all that comes down to math and science, and technology. And it's not that we don't have a focus on it. It's not that we don't have great companies and really smart people working on them. It's just that we're not the only ones doing it, and we have to recognize that.
Yeah, so today I talked to a group and I said China is graduating 8 times the STEM graduates that we are.
And not only that, what's even worse is we're graduating a bunch of them and sending them back. How stupid are we?
So what happens if we get behind?
I don't know. Some people argue we're even. Some people argue we're a little ahead. I'll try to frame a reference. When I started as a kid in the technology business, it was PCs. PCs, if you didn't understand how to use a PC, you were behind. You couldn't use a calculator in a piece of paper and tabular, all the working papers that accountants used. And then it went from PCs to local area networks. And people said, well, I can just walk over with a floppy from here to there. But we had to connect them together. And then we got the internet. And the internet changed everything, right? We're able to communicate globally. Well, in terms of importance and impact, PCs, local area networks, internet, AI is everything, right? The internet is a smidgen of impact compared to the impact AI will have. Why? Right? Because right now, whether it was these ideas or every time we try to solve a problem, as individuals, we take our frame of reference and we say, okay, I have a good feel for this. I have a good feel for what I'm trying to solve. I have some ideas on how to solve this problem. And then maybe we get into a group or an organization and they come together and they say, jointly we can come up with a better solution because we'll bring all our smartest manpower. What AI does effectively, it says, like with weather, right? What's a harder topic than weather? That's taking every possible input data that you can find, processing it, and then coming back to the originator or the user with more permutations and options than any individual can think of or deal with. And then, as we're advancing even further now with AI, trying to generalize and do some thinking, basic 2-year-old thinking now, to come up with solutions. Because we can't think of every possible option. 2 people, 10 people, 50 people starts to get too many people, and you get fewer options. AI doesn't have that limitation. The limitation AI has is processing speed and power and location. And so if we're not able to compete and start generalizing and thinking through these things and coming up with the limit and understanding the limitations of AI and what it shouldn't be doing as opposed to what it can't do, we're going to be on the outside looking in, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Let me pull on that too, because you mentioned individually. So today I would say our individual companies, whether any of our tech companies are incredible. Our national labs are incredible. Academia is some of the world's best. What I'd say in the Department of Defense, we got great folks. But China's doing it differently, right? They're doing kind of a whole of government. Yeah. They're all in it, right? Do we need to be all in it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Vladimir Putin, I was going to make a little snide comment there, but I won't. Vladimir Putin said, whoever dominates AI dominates the world, or something, to paraphrase what he said, and he's right. I mean, I can't emphasize enough the impact that artificial intelligence will have. Every solution that you saw up here today at its base, again, was math. And that's what AI does better than anything. And we talk about getting our kids into STEMs and teaching them we need more programmers. AI is going to do the programming for us. Really what we need is more critical thinkers, more people that are educated in a variety of subjects, whether it's military history. Having 20 years from now, for my son who's 9, having a military history base will be more important than knowing how to be a programmer in Python, visual-based, whatever it may be, C, because as AI advances, you want the information that goes into AI to be correct, right? And you want it to be balanced. You don't just want it to have one perspective. And so educating people in a lot of different disciplines and having a variety of opinions will become more critical to what we try to accomplish with AI than programming skills. And that's really hard for people to grasp right now. And, I mean, and some people will say I'm wrong about it, but that's what I truly believe. And so we need a lot of critical thinkers in the military so that as AI starts to generalize and comes to conclusions, the data that's going in and the constraints we put in it are well thought out and balanced.
Let me shift gears. So
Good.
Mark Cuban is an owner of a basketball team, the Mavericks.
Yep.
Right? And the Mavericks won some championships.
Just one.
I'd say now you're going through a little bit of a transition.
Yep.
But you've also been known to kind of change the way you look at it. You were one of the first folks who brought in a psychologist for elite sport athletes.
Yep.
Why did you do that? What?
I mean, military knows as well as anybody that it's not just your body, it's not just your skill set, it's your mind. You know, being a professional athlete requires not just being talented and not just being willing to work hard, but it's being able to deal with the mental strain and stress and being able to have the right approach to dealing with the circumstances. And you'll see it all the time. There are athletes in any sport that are good in the first quarter, and then there are other athletes that are the best with 5 minutes to go in a tie game. And most of that is your mental wiring. And so early on when I bought the Mavs, one of the best hires that I made was a guy named Don Kalkstein, who is our psych doc. And his job is to deal with helping guys fight through, you know, the things that limit them mentally. And it's really helped us a lot. We got to the finals in 2006 as an example, and we didn't win, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that we freaked out. And it just so happens that one of the major changes was our coach at the time felt competitive with Don, our team psychologist, and asked that we not use them that year, going into that year. We had a great record, got to the finals, but when we got to the real pressure point of the finals, not having Don Kalkstein there really hurt us, because coaches are coach. That's where their skill set is. Dealing with the pressure and dealing with the mindsets and dealing with the individual issues that you come across when you're at the very pinnacle and trying to win a championship are different, and not having him there hurt us. And so, you know, he has one of the longest deals. And part two to that is, you know, we started, I had to push him into building his bench strength, right? Because Father Time's undefeated. And so I've made him hire 2 additional people, because I want him to train them to be able to take on the next generation of players, because each generation is a little bit different.
Yeah. Our chief and secretary spent a lot of time thinking about that same problem. How do we optimize our airmen's performance? They really get the best out of them. So we have a couple programs, Operation True North, our Preservation of the Force and Family, that does just that tries to look at everything from diet to strength training to psychologists. Absolutely. To be able to optimize, because that's how the team's going to move forward.
We call it bioanalytics, right? And I invested a lot of companies right along those same lines. So you might have heard of Moneyball and sports analytics, where you take data from a game and you look at the team's performance and individual performance, and you slice it and dice it mathematically in a lot of different ways. But how an individual's body performs is something that we're also starting to track right now, from basic things like heart rate, perspiration, to who knows where we can take it. Blood sugar levels going into a game, blood sugar levels during the game. We're looking for anything that can give us an edge and help us solve problems.
Yeah. And you've led multiple industries and multiple companies. For talent, we can't compete on pay. What we'd say is we try and compete on purpose. What do you think about that? Do you think?
I think it's right on. I mean, look, I don't get to do what I do unless each and every one of you do what you do. And I should have said it right off the bat, but thank you for your service. Each of us is wired in our own way. We're all different. And once we recognize who we are as a person and what our purpose is and what our personal goals are, some of you, and I thank you and I appreciate you and don't take you for granted every day, have chosen that higher purpose of serving their country. Not just serving the country, but serving the world and trying to make it a better place. And I think that's important. And like hiring for any business, not everybody's the optimal hire. Not everybody's suited for what we do. Not everybody's a salesman. Not everybody's a geek. And not everybody's got the mindset to be an athlete. But we all have something that we think we're here for. And I think purpose is important because, I was just having this discussion today with somebody. There's a lot of questions in life that we'll never have the answers to. But one of the questions we try to answer is, what makes me feel good? What makes me wake up in the morning with a smile on my face knowing that I'm going to have an impact? Each and every one of you get to have an impact in ways most everybody else can never even dream of. And so purpose is important. And, you're being here and you're doing what you do motivates others. And I hope to God that, those on the outside of the services never take for granted what those on the inside do.
Got a couple questions from airmen that I got asked. I got Katie Booth Ellis who asked the question, of all the business deals you've made and the successes that you've had, what's the biggest missed opportunity and why didn't you take it?
I always looked at missed opportunities like old girlfriends. They're friends, kinda, sometimes. I don't think it's ever been a missed opportunity just as much as poor execution. Financially, business-wise, I invested in a company called Red Swoosh, which just did peer-to-peer networking. It was no big deal. We sold it and made a little bit of money on it. And the CEO was a guy named Travis. And he sent me an email not long after saying, I've got this idea. We're going to call it Uber Cab. And we're going to change the way people are transported, and we think we can replace cars. I think it's a great idea, I told him. And then I negotiated on valuation, and like 6 hours later, he got an offer for like 5 times as much as I offered him and turned it into Uber, and the rest is history. So that was one I missed. And I'm still pissed at him for not coming back to me, but yeah, shit happens, and fortunately, things have turned out okay otherwise, so it's, but yeah, you're gonna miss a few. But like you said earlier, the Babe Ruth thing, if you don't swing, you're not gonna hit anything, and that one I struck out on.
Okay, Airman Trinity Ruth asks, how do we bring a creative spirit to an organization that doesn't actually make money? And if we're not chasing the dollar, how do we maintain a similar focus?
Look, how do you define success? When each and every one of you wake up in the morning and you ask yourself, is it a successful day? What am I doing to reach my goals? Am I a success? Like I told you earlier that I was living 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment. I was, no lie, eating mustard and ketchup sandwiches. I would go to bars with $10 and have 1 beer and eat all the fried mushrooms and gain like 40 pounds. But I was loving life because I knew as an entrepreneur, I just had to get there, right? I knew I wasn't so much worried about failing as I was just trying to get to where I wanted to be. Well, if you wake up each and every morning knowing you're contributing to something that's important to you, that you matter, what's more successful than that? That's the definition of success. If you wake up every single morning with a smile on your face, knowing that you're doing something that makes a difference, how can you be more successful in that? And if that means making money, great. If that means, serving your country in what, great. That's what makes us all individuals. And that's how I've always defined success.
Mark, we've got a few more minutes. I want to do some rapid fire,
okay.
Just to see if we can pick this up a little bit, then I'll have a couple for you at the end. I know you grew up as a Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
Yep.
Mario Lemieux or Sid the Kid?
Mario.
Okay. Passion or polish in teammates?
Say what?
Passion or polish for
passion. Yeah, passion.
Remember the Secretary of the Air Force is here.
Okay.
Army or Air Force?
You didn't say you'd ask me dumb questions.
All right. Why you? What's made you successful?
I mean, again, I was successful when I was broke. I mean, I was dead ass broke, and I was happy. And, you know, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur from the time I was 9 years old. I just didn't know how successful, and honestly, you know, I made money along the way, and then it was luck, you know, starting the streaming industry when everybody said, why would I want to stream? I have a radio, I have a television, I have cable, I have satellite. No one's going to want, you know, internet broadcasting. But what made it really work and scale was the internet stock market took off, so I was lucky. And so beyond that, I mean, I have all these stupid little sayings that I tell myself all the time or tell employees or whatever. And one of them is the one thing in life that you can control is your effort. And I always work my ass off. Always. You know, first in, last out. I went 7 years when I started my first company without a vacation. I lived like I was broke because I was, and obviously today I still do. Yeah, I don't know why me in terms of why I'm here and somebody else isn't, but I've always just tried to bust my ass and be smart about it and always keep learning and trying to improve.
So when you get out and you get to meet our airmen and visit places and you see our Air Force, are you concerned or are you hopeful or both?
I'm not concerned about the airmen at all. I'm not concerned about the people that do the work at all. Boy, to say anything more, you're going to get me into politics, and that's probably not a good idea.
Okay, let me, I don't want to get this there either. This will be an easy one. If you joined the Air Force, what would you do? What job would you want to do?
Yeah, whether, you know, the real answer is fly jets, but I'm terrified of heights. Seriously. You know, the one thing I would do, going back to the conversations, and while I was listening to the presentations here, it really got me thinking that artificial intelligence, right? I would be training and hiring and supporting everyone, just like we teach them to read and write, the basic principles of machine learning and math, because we need people looking for solutions, and we need people who understand, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, that AI is going to change everything. And so I guess, and add one more thing, the hardest part about AI isn't the math, it's not the processing, it's not the geeky people geeking out, right? The hard part is finding the best ways to apply it in actual circumstances, right? And having more people who understand it, who could say, weather, look, here's all the research on weather, let me apply it, because when we're down in enemy lines, behind enemy lines, if we don't know what the weather is, yada, yada, right? Stuff that you understand far better than I. But being able to apply those principles, filling a trailer to put on a plane, right? That's math again. And machine learning is designed to come up with optimal solutions to how do you fill that trailer. Here's the design of everything that we have. Can we optimize the design of what goes in so we can fit more in? And what size trailer do we actually need? What materials give us the least cost and least weight? Those are all the things that machine learning and AI and different derivatives of AI can calculate for us. We're going to be dealing with more complicated issues, you know, deep fakes and making decisions. And so, you know, you have the right people, but that's part of the tool set that I would give them. And look, it was not like I grew up learning artificial intelligence and machine learning. I'm not supposed to, you know, old guys like me or guys my age aren't, or women my age aren't supposed to just know this stuff. I sat down on Amazon, AWS, and went through the machine learning tutorials. In my bathroom, you'll see a book, Machine Learning for Dummies. That's where I spend a lot of my time. Because all it takes is reading it and learning it. So it's not so it's so difficult. It sounds a lot more difficult than it is. And so giving everybody in the service those tools so that they're able to recognize when they see problems, they have a more advanced tool set to solve those problems.
Yeah. I'll give you the good news is the Chief and Secretary have got us on this path to be lifelong learners across our Air Force.
Absolutely.
To be able to take anything that we have and connect, share, and learn from it. And that's the path we're on to make it a digital 21st century Air Force. Let me let you close with, if you had one thing to say to our airmen, 685,000 of them, or to your 7.7 million Twitter followers about our airmen, what would you say?
Thank you. Nothing else to say.
Yeah, well, good. So, Mark, thank you for getting in the ring with us.
Thank you.
It's obvious why he's been really successful, and thanks for coming out to participate at our AFA Spartan.
That was great.
I got it. Mark gets the very famous Airman for Life AFA coin to tell you thank you, and I know he doesn't have a Vice Chief coin, so Mark,
thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mark Cuban, guys.